everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to paint easy roses in 3 different perspectives. Plus we're also going to paint a wild rose stem together with multiple flowers. This is a very easy one. It goes nice and slow, so this is a great one to paint along with. So go grab your paints and let's paint some roses together. Today I'm going to use my number 10 and my number 8 silver black velvet brushes. These are my favorite brushes for roses. They just give a really good result without a lot of effort. And you've probably seen some perspectives like this, but just in case you haven't, I'm just going to go over a few rose perspectives. So we're going to use my fake rose here. The first one we're doing is looking down straight into the rose from a top view. And I'm just going to keep this simple, and we're going to use just basic yellow, cadmium for yellow. And the first thing I do is 2 little interlocking C's. And you can really just make them squiggly. They don't have to be perfect C's. I like to make them squiggly, like a ruffle, or not a ruffle, but you know, the petal actually would be. And then we're just going to move around this center by painting C's. So we start out with the tip of our brush and then press down to make it thicker and pick the brush back up to get another thin spot. And these C's are going to get larger and larger as we move around the rose. So pick a spot over here in the thick part of that petal to start your next petal. And again, just find you a spot and go thin, thick, thin. Let's reload here, and then again, just pick a spot around any thick area and go thin. See, we're going to fill in this space right here. So we're going to go thin, thick, thin. So all we're doing is filling in those spaces all the way around. You can make it as large or small of a rose as you want. And I'm keeping this fairly tight. I'm not adding a lot of water here because I want you to see the actual anatomy of the rose for our demonstration. You know, if you want to, I like to get very loose and add a lot of water when I'm doing this, but I really wanted you to be able to see all the petals so that you can see what we're doing. And then you can use your own style to make the petals more ruffly or more watery. Now we're going on to a rose that's looking up, and we see not straight down into it, but you're really looking at like a profile. I start the same way. I do 2 or 3 little squigglies for the center. And you know, you can always do these in different colors and stuff like that, but for our demonstration I want to keep this simple. So we're starting out the same exact way. And notice on the first one I left a lot of white space so that you could really see each petal. Now on this one, I'm probably not going to leave quite as much white space, but that's totally up to you. And see, my C's are now not exactly C's, but sort of. And then on this other side, the side that's furthest away from us, I'm going to do a few little squigglies just to represent the tips of some petals on that other side that we can't see all of those petals. And then just keep moving around in the same way. Only now, it's not going to be a perfect circle. And I think just for fun, I'm going to go ahead and add some water in here just to give you an example of that. So I don't have as much white space on these outer petals as I did on that first rose. And I can drop in some thicker pigment just to add some shadows. Now let's look at one in a complete profile. So we're not going to see the center at all. We're only going to see these outer petals. So first I usually like to start with the middle one because it's the largest and it's the most prominent. So let's just do one petal. You can do as many petals as you want, but that first one is the most prominent. And that kind of helps you center your flower wherever you're wanting it. So that's the first one. And now I'm just going to add a few more strokes for the other petals that are opening away from the center of the rose. And now this is a really good spot to add your stem. Let me just extend that down a little bit. Maybe we'll add a little orange in here. Just add some shadowing. And the more you do these and the more you practice, then you start finding other ways to bring out some details in your roses if you want to, like adding other colors. Now let's grab a little green. And we're going to do a stem. Ooh, that's lovely. Oh, I love when that happens. And we'll just have us a little sketchy stem. Now, let's do one more large one just for practice before we get started. So there's my center. And now let's do a few short, tight C's around our center. It only takes a few, and now we want to start gradually getting larger. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now I think I'll introduce a little water just to vary our pigment density. So there's just clean water on here, and I'm still painting C's. I'm just allowing my brush to touch some of the other petals so that they bleed into that clean water. I think I'm going to change to my number 10 brush now so that we can have some larger petals. And we're going to have this one looking slightly off center, just a little bit to the side. So I'm going to put larger petals over here on this side, and then a little bit smaller one there. And I'm just going to continue working with larger strokes coming around this front side, since we're seeing most of this side as opposed to that back side. And see, that stroke was really more of an M than a C. So you can just loosen it up a bit. And just look around and see, where do you want more petals? We can make this one pretty large. And we'll drop in a little bit of darker pigment for some shadows. That looks good. And you know, maybe even let's add some raw sienna. That will give us an even deeper shadow. So just a little bit. Maybe right here in the center for sure. Okay. And just pick out a few spots that are still wet so that that pigment will bleed very nicely. All right. I think that's good. Let's now paint a wild rose stem with several of these roses on it. Okay, I have a clean piece of paper now, and I'm going to stick with yellow roses. Just pick a spot anywhere you want. I'm just going to start over to the side here, do a center, and just like we've been practicing, going to do a few C's. Okay. So I'm going to do these a little bit more on the looser side than we were doing before. More like that last one that we did. And I've actually grabbed two different yellows in my brush now, which will add a little variation. So I actually had lemon yellow and cadmium-free yellow in my brush that time. And now with some clean water, just gonna add a few more petals out here. I think that's such a pretty look when the colors kind of fade in and out for the rose. Now this is a little bit of raw sienna I'm dropping in for the shadows. Put a few smaller petals on the backside. All right. Now with a little piece of a stem here, and I want to do this part right now just so that green can start bleeding into where the rose is still wet. And I'll go ahead and do a few of these little leaves coming off that open rose. But I'm not going to do the whole stem yet. Let me drop in a little bit more of this raw sienna while it's still wet. There we go. That's much better. So I just keep dropping in various colors until I get it the way I want it. You know, no two roses are ever the same. Okay. Let's move over. Let's do another one right about, yeah, right about here. So I really don't have a master plan here of the layout. Just know I'm going to do several buds, flowers on one stem. So this one is looking away from us a little more. You know, it's really good to vary, you know, don't have them all looking in the same direction. That gets pretty boring. Maybe this one will be a little bit larger bloom. All right. And I'm sure yours are going to look different from mine. And if I were to paint this one a second time, they would all look different. So don't worry if you're painting along and you think, but mine don't look like that. Well, that's okay, really. They don't really have to look like this. Put that green down here. That's probably my favorite part, is putting the stem on the flower to allow that green to bleed into this to the flower. I just love that part. And then we'll try to connect up that, maybe have some little wigglies out here. I don't know, let's see. Could have some buds going off that one. Let's go ahead and get this stem all the way down. And it would be a fairly thick stem. This wild rose holding several roses coming off of it. The main stem would be more thick. And maybe we need some little buds over there in the top right. So when you're doing stems, they're never smooth, straight, in real life. So even though this is not a realistic painting, it's going to have some elements of realistic. And one of the elements that I really like to incorporate is that all my stems are wiggly and not so perfect. Same thing for leaves. Let's put a few of those little leaves underneath this. That's good. And so I'm using green gold for the most part, but there's also the darker parts are green umber. I had to think about that a minute because I use undersea green a lot, but I think this one's green umber. And to do a little bud, there are so many different ways you can do a bud. You can just do an oval and that's fine, especially when it's brand new bud, it hasn't really opened yet. Just a simple oval works just fine. But I usually put them so that they're just beginning to open, so I'll add a few extra little small petals that are just beginning to release. And then, of course, put some shadow in there. That helps. I like doing these very squiggly leaves with this brush. Rose leaves are always kind of prickly. And the silver brush, if you just wiggle it around a bunch, kind of smash it down, it does good rose leaves. If I'm doing larger rose leaves, a lot of times I will use a wedge brush. But today I'm being lazy. I don't want to get my wedge brush. And this is doing just fine. See how I'm just jiggling it? We have a lot of white space on this page. So I'm looking for places to put leaves to take up that white space. And I'm going to use my paint tube to put some veins in these leaves, but don't press down very hard. If you're using your paint tube, they're very sharp and they will cut through your paper. So I am just barely touching it. Well, from this point forward, I'm really not going to do anything new or different than what we've already done today. I'm just going to fill up this page with leaves and some more buds. So I'm going to turn on some music so that we can just relax and finish our paintings together. Well, that's all I'm going to do to mine. I'm happy with the outcome here. I hope you enjoyed painting with me, and I hope that you feel more comfortable painting roses in some different perspectives. I would love to see what you painted. If you would like to tag me on Instagram and use the hashtag paintingwithbila, then we can all see it. And be sure to tag me though, so I'll know that you've posted something and I can go take a look at it. Thanks for painting with me today. I hope to see you again soon.